Hello everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and it's a Sunday morning, and I just thought I should play in my art journal today with absolutely no plan as what I was going to do. This journal is a handmade journal. I'll put a link to how you can make one of these, and it's only got a couple spreads left in it, and I want to finish it. I want to finish filling up the book. I think there's one more 2-page spread and then two other 1-page, the front and the back basically, left. This journal was originally about nature and the spirits of nature and things like that. It's been passed around the country. It's flown around even to Australia and places, and I just want to finish it. So I decided to make a page. I really had no plan for this page other than I had put I turned on my infuser in my room, and I have a couple different essential oils that I put in there, and I was working on sorting my stencils. I'm still working on that project because I'm tabbing them and labeling all of them and looking up where they're from so that in the future, if I want to use that stencil on a video, then I can easily figure out what stencil it is and who makes it and be able to put a link in the description box below. So it's a long, slow process working through these stencils. And I had a couple of stencils I was looking at, which between the essential oil that I put in my infuser, which was cedar wood, smells like cedar, and the stencils, which you'll see later in the video, I was thinking about the giant redwood forest and walking through, like hiking in the California redwood forest. I did that not this summer, but the last summer, and then also going to Oregon to visit my friend, and we go down to the coast and we hike around through all those ancient forests with the big trees and the moss and the ferns and the moisture and the smell of it. And I was thinking about that and just like wishing that I could go. I really would just like to get away for a little bit, go to the coast, hike in the forest. It just sounds so delightful to me. And between the stencils and the smell and everything, this is what I was thinking about. So I started my page by putting some of that gold gesso on there because it's just cool. That has nothing to do with forests. And then next I started making these vertical lines like the trees out of the color Sedona, which is a Dina Wakely color. It's a red cedar type of a color. And so I pulled that one out, as well as the olive, which is kind of a green gold color. And I'm just making these vertical lines with my palette knife. The Dina Wakely paint is a heavy body, so you can scrape it with your palette knife. And I made these kind of stripes across the page. And then I wanted to kind of calm them down a little bit. So I used some golden fluid acrylic, the high flow, in a neutral gray color, and I was kind of dripping that down. And then I was thinking about the leaves and the moss and all the different types of greens and kind of, what kind of word do I want to say? Textured, crunchy, I don't know. Anyway, so I had this napkin piece and I was tearing that up and thinking about that, thinking about the dappled leaves in the forest and how the sunlight kind of comes through, but it's still pretty dark under there. So you feel, and it's also quiet. It's like you're close to the road, but yet you don't hear anything because of the trees. It kind of just blocks everything out. It's an experience. And I was thinking about that, so I tore up some of the napkin to try to think about the foliage and the textures of that. And then I thought I needed some more definition of these tree pieces. So I used a Stabilo All pencil and I just kind of drew it down around the edges, and then I was blending it with my finger, and I decided that there really needed to be some more texture. So I've seen somebody do this before, where you use your palette knife and some heavy gesso and kind of just scrape it across a tree trunk. And usually they're making birches. These are supposed to be redwood trees, not birch. But I figured I could put my highlights on one side with this heavy gesso and a metal palette knife. So you just kind of find your line and kind of scrape it up and down and then scrape it across. And it actually is really cool technique. I've seen it lots of times, never really done it. And I enjoyed that. I thought it was pretty fun, but I didn't want birch trees. So I decided to go ahead and put the shadows on the other side and then to bring back in some of that red. This one I picked the wrong line. I'm like, oh, wait, that's not right. So I had to wipe it off. So this I'm using some brown. I think it's a raw umber, I think, but I'll have to look. I'll put the description in the description box below, all the products I use and the colors I use so that you could duplicate something like this if you wanted to. So doing the same thing just on the other side of the tree, bringing back in a dark color and kind of scratching up and down and then scraping across to get this texture. Is it a redwood tree? Not exactly. The redwoods actually, their texture is more vertical if you look at them. So the colors are right, but maybe I should have tried to scrape up and down, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was just playing. I was making some trees. Maybe they're rainbow eucalyptus trees. I don't know, but I just wanted some trees. I wanted some texture. I wanted some interest on the page. So coming back in with that Sedona color again, that reddish color, and doing the same thing, scraping from that one side to the other side with a metal palette knife. So now they're really looking pretty tree-ish. They're tree-like. I'm pretty happy with them, even though maybe they don't look exactly like redwood trees anymore. But, you know, got them dried out. So then I had to, of course, with all that heat tool action, I blew away all my little napkin pieces. I had to find all of them and bring them back. And then I started to just kind of collage them on. There's this olive green patterned napkin, then a little bit of kind of a text printed scrap of a napkin to try to make that dappled sunlight coming through type of an idea. And so I'm just collaging these on with some decoupage napkin glue. I could have just used regular, but I didn't want, because I still do have that metallic sheen. Oh, I forgot I'd also put some Dina Wakely Ancient paint in my first layer, which is also a metallic, and it's kind of like a brown bronze metallic, not exactly a copper. It's an interesting color. I put some of that in there. I didn't want to completely obliterate the metallicness of it between the gesso and the ancient paint. So I decided to use the napkin glue because it's not matte. And I didn't want to use a matte medium over this to really like dull down all the shininess. So I started by putting them on the tops and kind of letting them drag down in an uneven, kind of hanging down. And then I thought, well, a lot of these trees are mossy, and so I put a little bit hanging down even further over the trunks, and then I thought, well, I need something on the bottom because now there's all this at the top and it's not coming through the composition. So I also put some along the bottom on the forest floor there to really make the effect that I would want. I would have to have a very tall, very thin art journal, and I don't actually have a tall, thin art journal. I have a art journal that has some kind of tallish, thin pages that I haven't started working in yet. But I don't know. It gives the effect that I was thinking about. I'm still thinking about tromping through the moist forest in Oregon near the coast and just wishing I was there. It's probably really cold, though. I'd be complaining about how cold it is. I probably want to go there in the summer, not right now. I know a lot of you are really, really cold with crazy amounts of snow and things. So here's the stencils I was talking about. The mushroom stencils. This is what started the whole thing. I was putting tabs on these and I wanted to use the mushroom stencils. I thought I thought about the forest. Mushrooms live in a moist, wet environment. And in fact, when I was a child, I went a few times mushroom picking. There was some mushrooms around where I lived in Oregon that were what people wanted. And we went out and found them in the woods. It was pretty fun and kind of weird, but it was with somebody, my mom and someone else, I can't remember their name, who could find them and who understood which ones you should pick. I remember one of them was morel, and they kind of looked like, they didn't really like the mushroom, classic mushroom shape. They were more like a kind of like a brain or something. I don't know, but yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing when I was a child. Briefly, we used to go out. So I wanted to put mushrooms on my page, but yeah, after I assembled the mushrooms and cut them out and were making them, they were too big in scale. They were as big as the trees. It wasn't, it, yeah. I liked my background. I didn't want to completely cover it up with these giant mushrooms, which, yeah, no, I just didn't like it. So I ended up setting my mushroom pieces aside. I'll use them some other time. And then I went looking in my bin of scraps. I save a lot of my little sketches when I'm making something. And this little deer sketch is from a ornament that I made. Probably can link the video if I can find it. I know it's on my channel somewhere. There's over 500 videos though. It's sometimes hard to find something. But I also found this sack that is, I think it's from Chili's. They put their napkin and their silverware in a little sack, and they have some different things on that, different printing on it, different times. It could be from a different store, but it says we were put here to serve. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, that is exactly what I was thinking about the forest and how special it is and how we should conserve it and visit, but don't take anything away from it. Don't just only the enjoyment of the forest. And I don't know. That just seemed like what I should put on the page. It spoke to me. It said, hey, this is what you need to put on the page. So once I found that and this little drawing of a deer, I decided that those things were better on the page than the mushrooms. And so I took the little drawing. It's on a Post-it note, strangely. It's got sticky on the back. I thought that was strange, but I cut out the words we were put here to serve from the sack, and then I drew around the deer with some permanent illustration marker, which is my Faber-Castell illustration pens. They're India ink, so they don't run once they're dry anyway. They don't run when you put something moist over the top, like collaging it on here. Cut out my deer and collage that onto the page, and that seemed to fit a lot better scale-wise. It's still not as tall and thin as I wish it was, but you can't change the size of the journal. It is what it is, right? No, I'm magic. I can just stretch the journal. Sure, that's how it works. I wish. Magic would be really helpful. I could have my whole entire studio cleaned up and all my stencils marked and put away and everything organized like in just by flittering my fingers and saying, go, organize yourself. Wouldn't that be great? That would be awesome. But that's just not going to happen anytime soon. Probably never. So anyway, I collaged those on. And then I thought to myself, I should put a little bit more, I should bring that gold back up to the front again because I like that idea of the dappled tops of the trees and the sunlight coming in. So I got the gold gesso back out in this kind of a splashy stencil that was from Stencil Girl. It's on my little 4x4s from Stencil Girl. And it's probably from a club, I'm guessing. It's probably a club stencil. But put that on with a little bit of sponging. And that kind of brings the sunlight back through the trees. Made sure everything was real dry. And then I colored my deer using some Faber-Castell brush markers that, of course, are India ink as well. And because this is sealed down with some medium, it's pretty easy to blend them, so that's why I picked them. Using a couple different colors, kind of a light gray brown and a darker brown to color the body. It's a white-tailed deer, I think. It has that little white tail and white underneath its belly and chest. So I'm just coloring that with the India ink markers. I hope you've enjoyed this video and my little random art play on a Sunday morning. If you liked it, or even if you didn't, you can leave me a comment below or a question. You can share this if you want to. You can pin it to your Pinterest or something like that. And of course, don't forget to subscribe because, yeah, I put out frequent videos almost every other day, and the subscription and notification bell will tell you when they come out. So I'm just finishing up my coloring. The last thing I did is to use kind of a neutral gray again in the markers. Oh, first I used a white marker and then I used a neutral gray marker to do some shading around the deer. I think that always makes a huge difference when you put that shadow around what you've stuck on, because it makes it blend onto the page a little bit better. So I did that. Also gives me a little bit of a ground for the deer to stand on, which it always bothers me when things are just floating in the air. So that was the last thing I did to this page, and I'm happy with it. So have a great rest of your weekend. I know there's not much left, but I hope you enjoy it. Bye-bye.